So Mission Impossible: The Final Reckoning. This was supposed to be the culmination of a near 30-year journey, right? Now, granted, maybe it's a little unfair. Maybe it's a little unfair to expect that all these decades of build-up would lead to a massive event, like a film. Maybe this was more of a product of opportunity because they happened to get this film series going for almost 30 years. Look, it's not like they had the entire franchise mapped out over the last 15 years even, or at least during the second trilogy. I mean, look, it's very hard for me to judge this film based on its own merits. Now, cards on the table, I am late to the Mission Impossible party. With the exception of Fallout, because it had Superman and a really good trailer, I had never seen any of the old Mission Impossible films. So, I made a commitment to watching all of them over the span of about a week and a day. I watched one a day. There was a mix of spoofs, parodies, and to be frank, I think Tom Cruise himself maybe prevented me from really giving this franchise a chance. It's one of those cornerstones of filmmaking that I never really got into. Something like Jurassic Park or Ghostbusters. Just never really felt compelled to watch them as a teen or as an adult. But when you find out that it's the end of a 30-year journey, well, I had to give it an honest try, so I went all in watching all the films. Was that the right call? Maybe. Maybe drip feeding a 30-year-old franchise one after the other for over a week is not the best way to do things, but lo and behold, here we are, and after reviewing or watching The Final Reckoning Part 2, The Revenge, look, cards on the table that I'm about to flip, The Final Reckoning is fine. You know what? It's better than fine. It's good. But it's not great.
Move this man!
Now, hear me out. There will be plenty of moments of me comparing this film to other films, throwing back. In my defense, this film does try to do that too, quite a bit. Also, I think that might be one of its strengths, leaning on the decades of history. Luther's sacrifice made sense, and when Benji was at the risk of dying late in the third act, I believed that it was possible that Ethan and his team would die. That added to the tension of would they live? Would Ethan live? Now, the throwback to the third film with the Rabbit's Foot, the fact that it actually turned out to be an AI, self-learning AI, that would culminate in the end of all human life as we know it, as civilization. I mean, it's a little too Terminator for my taste. I personally prefer my villains to be, breathing. It's a little too sci-fi for me, but I guess in theory, the whole concept of AI and the entity itself is more relevant today than it ever has been in the past. Also, just a quick question. Did it throw anyone else off when they killed the love interest of the last three movies, even after Ethan married Julia? They killed her in part 7, but not in part 8, and then gave Ethan Agent Carter to snuggle with. Did it throw anyone else off, or is that just me? I will say this though, the opening and how Ethan talks about this one long story, it actually worked for me, at least in the moment. It felt like, okay, this is the end of a journey. Okay, I can get on board with this. I can give this a chance. This is the send-off that Ethan Hunt deserves, right? There are even various throwbacks throughout this film, including Kittredge from the first film, that poor CIA dude that designed that vault that got sent to Antarctica. Also, the whole aspect of a globe-trotting adventure, with multiple governments coming after Ethan and his team, trying to get control of the entity. Because in theory, whoever controls the entity controls the future of the world. So Ethan can't trust any government with it, not even his own. It's tantalizing. It's a good idea. It's a good concept. He will not bring it back even to his boss. And then we're off to the races with an AI that's trying to save itself by sealing itself inside a giant vault that's never been mentioned. And, I mean, look, I'm a guy who always says just go with it, but I have a hard time when this is supposed to be the end game plan, if that makes sense. The idea or the concept of one final threat to end the world versus the one man that can action stun his way to saving it. Which is also, I don't know if people have ever heard about this, the secret Tom Cruise versus AI trilogy with Top Gun Maverick, Dead Reckoning Part 1, and then I guess The Final Reckoning. Kind of like an anti-AI trilogy, which, yeah, I'm all for, if I'm being honest with you. But the curious part is that the fact that they figure out the stunts before they ever write the script. Sometimes it works, base jumping can be fun, but sometimes when you're left under the sea diving for 25-30 minutes, it lasts way too damn long, and there's a mix of bad in there. I can admit not everything in this film is for me, right? I was never into my extreme sports. That's why sometimes the stunts aren't really that crazy. He's holding onto the side of a plane. Cool. Like that stunts don't do it for me. Story does. He says as he really loves the John Wick franchise, which is nothing but like physical hand-to-hand combat stunt work. Not saying stunts are bad, they deserve their Oscar. The point being is that you're not going to hook me simply by holding onto the side of a plane. That's not enough, in my case. Anyway, all this is just to say, this movie felt very self-indulgent. And I mean that, if I'm being honest, in the worst way possible, at least with the diving sequence. Because unless you're a diver, or unless you're doing diving, it's actually pretty boring. And again, I understand, I can respect the commitment to filming the whole aspect of it, to actually doing the dive and showing everything. I respect it, but I'm not entertained. Now that said, I can appreciate a good aerial dogfight, especially when it's 2 hours in. But again, the diving just really threw me off. I mean, look, I would have rather them done a 3.5 hour Final Reckoning film, like not part 1 and 2, just combine them into one really long ass movie, especially when the first part is way better than the second. This movie has the emotional stakes for Ethan, but is that enough? Can this film survive on the soul on one man? And I think, no. Let me explain myself. I think, and I know this is the way the film was set up, Tom Cruise might kill off Ethan Hunt. Would he do it on this high? I mean, after all, it happened with Daniel Craig in 007, it's happened with John Wick. Maybe it's time, if he's going to retire the character, why not go out on a high note, kill off the character, save the world, but you also lay the groundwork for Agent Carter to take over in Mission Impossible: The New Frontier. But they don't do that. Ethan survives. So does Benji. And while I understand a different point of view, it was pointed out to me, the whole, at the end of the third Indiana Jones film, the film ends not with Indy dead, but with him running off into the sunset with his father, off for another adventure. I get it. But that's not what this film was setting up. Had they had the guts to kill off Tom Cruise, I'd be praising this movie so much more. He gave his life to save the world. And you can even throw back to the oath, for those that we love and those that we'll never meet. The world will never know the man that saved them. That's perfection. And then maybe Benji does live and he goes on to run MI6. There was a better story there that they chose not to tell. And I have a problem with that. And again, don't get me wrong, this movie feels very good with the globetrotting adventure, and I respect that. But it also feels very self-indulgent, and can we get out of the fucking water? This movie will probably be the end for a lot of people that have been following this franchise since the 1990s. Jesus world. Since the 1990s, right? If you've liked this film series ever since then, this is probably a really good send-off for you. But I just can't get into it completely. I can appreciate a grand film that films on location that has insane stunt work. I can appreciate it, but I'm never going to go back to rewatch it unless Ollie makes me. For me, at least, it's a 6 out of 10. It's better than average, but I don't think I'm ever going to go back to rewatch this one. Personally, I think Fallout's probably the best film of the franchise. I just think it had better action sequences. But hey, maybe that's just me. What did you think of the Final Reckoning, Tom Cruise's bow out, if he is? I wouldn't be surprised if he returns as Ethan Hunt. I'm just saying, I wouldn't be surprised. But yeah, that said, what did you all think? Let us know down below. We really appreciate it, and we'll catch you all next time. We'll see everybody.